Okay, we found 20 questions black people have for white people that BuzzFeed didn't ask. And I didn't know BuzzFeed was asking, so I may have to check into that too. But hell, I'll take a shot at this. Let's just see what's up.
Be honest. You hate black people, don't you?
No, we don't generally hate black people. What we do is we hate racism and people that come off condescending like this and stuff, especially black people that white people helped out so much and were the ones that freed them. They come off with this attitude and they're shaking their head around with their fake Caucasian hair hat that isn't even their real hair, and they come off with this attitude, and it's so racist and really bad, and that's what we don't like. I mean, we stopped acting that way so it would all go away, but now that it doesn't go away, next thing you know, you have things like this going on. It's kind of disgusting. Let's continue. That's one.
White people, do you know what gentrification is doing to black neighborhoods? Do you have any idea?
Any idea what gentrification is doing to black neighborhoods? Well, what it's doing is it's reclaiming slums in areas that are not worth living in and turning them back into productive places for society. Now, that does push poverty black people out of that area, but if you just get a job and be worth doing something, then all that would go away. It's not the whites' fault that they're trying to keep up with their cities. Clearly, every place that black people are starts to become a slum very rapidly. So they're just trying to go around and sweep up. I know it's hundreds of years too late, I guess, but they're just going around trying to make sure we don't end up in a hellhole or a... Okay, so that's two.
Why is being a former drug dealer a bad thing, but being a former slave owner totally okay in white America?
Um, well, that's the most debated question so far, I guess. Um, why is it not okay to be a previous drug dealer? Well, that doesn't look good on you, and that doesn't look good on you, and that you yourself and you. And so that's something that you have done and that you would be responsible for and that you might still have a problem with and that you might cause. And so there has to be that look at that. But then you say, well, a white slave owner, and I don't know if you think we're owning slaves at this point, but it's been many, many generations since anything like that has gone on. And therefore, the answer to that would be one is non-existent and hasn't been for many generations. The other one is a problem that you directly do have. And let's continue.
Do you honestly think the structure of America is not based on racism?
Well, the structure of America. Well, to be honest with you, the structure of America, I think, was based on we the people, and we the people never included black people in any way, shape, or form. Even though there were some slaves, the idea was that they were going to get sent back to Africa. In fact, a place named Liberia was made for such. There was a lot of black people that begged their way to stay, said they didn't want to. We gave them the opportunity, and instead of going back to their homeland, they actually wanted to stay here now. Some people actually appreciated the difference of the two places at that point. In fact, I'm sure African Americans still do, where they won't go back now, even though they talk all this crap. But was it based on racism? No, not really. Finally, Caucasians were released from the oppression of the entire Dark Ages, which went on for a little over 4 times the amount of time that blacks were oppressed here in North America. Sure, they were for longer than that in South America, if you add that on, which had nothing to do with the people that they're trying to yammer at this point. And then, of course, before that, well over 900 years before the Americas were even found, the Islamic slave trade worked on them, but they were actually castrated as eunuchs and then disposed of after they got through really using them in any way, shape, or form to keep from feeding or housing them anymore. And it's well documented, all the Moors and all that and what they had done with blacks. So, I think that's 4.
Do you really think you discovered America?
Do we think that we discovered America? Well, no. Believe it or not, it was white archaeology and white scientists that figured out that before Columbus had come, that it had been Leif Erikson and the Vikings and so on. And so, no, it was Caucasians then before that had found it. And before then, of course, whenever the Bering Strait was still there during the last ice age, Asians had come over, Eurasians, Indo-Asians had come over through the Bering Land Bridge. They were somewhat similar to Eskimos, and those were the American Indians, and went down into South America and did different things. And there's some oddities that are found in that too, with a bunch of blonde-haired mummies and things like that. But we don't think that Columbus found America anymore. In fact, we were the ones that figured out that he didn't. The only reason you would have that on your mind right now is because Caucasians had found it out and told you. So I don't know what all this is supposed to be about or the directive, but would you ever see a white person be able to make a video like this? Dun, 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 dun. Black people, how come you still live in dung huts? Dun, 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 dun. Hey, black people, how come you still kill albinos and use their body parts and special potions and believe in witch doctors and don't even know of God? Dun, 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 dun. Really? What do we have next? She's going to say something else, I swear.
Do you really think it's yours?
Do we really think it's ours? Yeah. Yeah, it's ours. Yep. Damn straight it's ours.
When I'm upset, I'm an angry black man. Or black woman. But when you're upset, you're just upset.
Well, if I'm a white man, then I'm upset, so I'd be a white person that is upset. But there might be different between upset and angry. I'm upset at stupid things that are like this that come on, where these black people seem all entitled now after just a few generations of domestication. They come off like, they're just entitled as hell, which is strange. That reminds me, there's your phone call. I've got to call bullshit on this whole thing that goes on here. But yeah, there's a big difference between angry and upset. Upset is whenever you're kind of disgusted about something stupid like this. Angry is whenever black people are all like, how come we ain't as smart as you? How come we don't have everything you have? How come it's not our land? Well, you've got a land. It's back in Africa. You can take a boat ride right now. In fact, we'll help you do it probably. I don't understand what your problem is, except for you just don't like your play in life. And I'm sorry that you were the most primitive people on the planet. That's not my fault in any way, shape, or form. Let's continue.
Aren't you an angry white man? What?
No, not necessarily. Although bullshit like this kind of gets you upset. And look at this yakety wobbly-headed attitudes and stuff, and they all just looking at you with these grins like they know something. It's just terrible. It is disgusting. Why isn't
Isn't racism illegal?
Why isn't racism illegal? Because we have amendments that say that you have a freedom of speech and your thoughts and stuff in this land. It's the reason that you could have made a video like this, because if racism wasn't illegal, you would be in jail right now for the video that you're making. Yeah.
Why is gaining the black vote so important, but mass incarceration against black people isn't?
Well, that's a weird thing. You want to have everybody in America that considers themselves Americans and not some subset group that just hates Americans. You'd want them to have a unity, and you'd want to have input by people that you've allowed to have input. So it's an important thing that we include these people. Maybe they shouldn't be included, though, if they have attitudes like this. And why do we like that vote? Now, the incarceration, that goes back to the problem of the black people being somewhat primitive and having a high testosterone level and a low threshold of being able to control themselves. And so, even though they're only like a 12% of the American population, they cause well over 50% of the crimes in America, and robbery and rape and all of these things. And so, because they are 50% or more of the crime, they end up being 50% or more of the people that are in jail for doing such things. It's kind of a silly question, but then it's so baited whenever these guys are putting this out.
Why are all of y'all afraid of black people?
Afraid of black people. We're not afraid of black people. We're kind of afraid that y'all aren't going to be able to make it. That clearly only 1/3 of y'all are excelling out, and the rest of them are just blaming Whitey for everything on something he didn't even do. I don't even know if you're aware of the Jewish slave trade. I don't think black people know the difference between a black person and a Jewish person. You know, white people know the difference between an Australian Aborigine and a West African Negroid. In fact, we know the difference between a Tanzanian and a West African, and anybody that's, been exposed to it at all. So that's just kind of a mute point. There are people that are afraid that because of their track record, that things like this are just going to keep happening, and there's no reason to have this level of crime in America. Half of the crime in America could go away if black people would just go back to Africa.
I don't want your purse. I just want the same pay rate.
I can understand that, but like I just said, there's a lot of people that are of your ethnicity that do want our purse, do want our car, do want to rob our house, do want to pull guns, do want to shoot people, do want to rob stores, do want to rape women.
What are you going to do about systematic rape?
What am I going to do about it? Wow, we already spend $1 trillion a year just trying to help black people out and stuff through the American government. I don't know what more we can do except for get that $1 trillion and perhaps give it to them for a one-time payment to go back to Africa and use that money to see if they can do something back over there. Africa awaits. It's their homeland, and it wasn't too long ago. Don't act like it was.
Racism.
You. What are you going to do about helping your people out enough to where they're not looked at in this way anymore? You.
Why must you own all the media outlets?
All of the media outlets. Man, y'all have got a problem discerning between Jewish people and white people. It's almost like if you were to say, Japanese people look like Chinese people and you can't tell the difference. Or it's almost, it's silly. You do know the difference between a Jewish person and a white person, because the Jewish people definitely do. Definitely do.
Could we at least have BET back?
BET back. I didn't know that it was gone, but I thought there was a problem with it being racistly geared and making a bunch of black people unaware of their own culture, because it was falsifying a lot of things, like saying you were Egyptians and all these other things that really weren't true at all. It was making all these shows that tried to put black people in the same position to pump up the idea, but it did nothing but incite racism for about half of what it was. I think the other half was probably worth watching, but let's continue.
Why does every race qualify for reparations except black people?
Why does every race qualify for reparations? Oh, you're begging for money now again? Is that, yeah. Well, we've seen this Black Lives Matter where they want your houses and they want all this other stuff. The black people that were freed were given reparations, and the ones that didn't get it. And that may or may not have been, and you have no idea, your great 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 granddad And that doesn't add up to the trillions a year that we spend still keeping you maintained. That really just goes as a unforeseen thing that we're doing for your people. Your people are doing nothing for us in that endeavor. We're losing to the tune of $600 and something million a year in our endeavor to help out black people, and that's just involving welfare and programs, and not the other things, and the law enforcement that has to be beefed up and doubled up and things like that, and all of those things that exist over and above just from this one simple problem, from this one simple people that are recently domesticated from a primitive, pre-Stone Age level, illiterate, dung hut dwelling tribal people that captured and sold their own people for beads and alcohol or less, like a drive-through slave mart. And I'm not sure why we get all this attitude unless they're not aware of all these factors. They're probably just misled totally by a bunch of racist black people telling them what really went on.
A long time ago, really not that long ago, you guys prevented black people from learning how to read and write. But why did you let them keep the Bible?
Okay, wow. So that's a weird worded question, but let's go with the idea that black people were illiterate before we found them. They didn't have a form of writing. And so whenever we taught them was whenever we taught them. And slave owners taught them, mathematics and, of course, all the words and everything that went along with it. And a lot of people, including a lot of European cultures and so on, were basically illiterate at that time too, and not recently before that had recently become literate itself. So the weird odd question is why did we actually start teaching you, learning you, build schools for you, places of higher learning, and actually make colleges that are just for black people? You don't see us having the colleges that are for only white people. Sure, we might have some elite colleges where you have to hit a certain number to get there, but they actually fudge their numbers just to try to get some ethnics in there. Blacks get like a 250 or more point raise on their entrance exams to get into college just to try to get more in there. It's part of that assertive program, the affirmative action that really is kind of disgusting. It's kind of cheating on the endeavor of black people. But why did they let them keep the Bible? Because we thought it might be a good idea to understanding something that was holy, although there's a lot of terrible things that are in the Bible. The sad thing about that is that black people now that were from West Africa and not related to any of these people feel that they were in the Bible. I don't know if you're aware, there's all these black Hebrew Israelites that think they were in the Bible. They were Egyptians, they were the Moors, they were all these other people, and they were really none of those. I mean, white people and Noah and Jacob and Laban, who said his skin was white, and then Jacob's skin was skin of my skin, flesh of my flesh. They don't have black people that don't have Neanderthal admixed that end up looking like this man right here, just somehow magically. They don't have twins where one of them is red-headed or hairy and the other one is somehow black. No, they didn't have twins that work that way. That's not the way that works in any way, shape, or form. And genetically, it's about impossible. In fact, the Neanderthal, non-Neanderthal admix thing makes the whole endeavor impossible. They had never come in contact with any of these people. But let's continue.
White people, historically, you've never liked black people. But why have you always accepted black people's money?
Black people's money. Oh, well, in American society and in white people's society, we don't barter or just kill each other off and try to steal each other's stuff. In white people's more advanced culture, what we do is we've now developed currency and money, and you get that for doing jobs, and then you use portions of that to buy food and to buy commodities that you need, insurance for your car to make sure that you're protected and you're protecting others. All those things, being able to buy a house, being able to buy land. Blacks were able to buy land for the first 150 years that they were in slavery. They only had a 7-year chattel slavery, and there were 6 times more whites in it than there was blacks. That all ended with a man named Anthony Johnson who went to court and actually demanded lifetime slavery for a man that was through with his 7 years. And through a bunch of rhetoric, he ended up winning in court and setting a statute and making a black person the very first person in America to ever full lifetime own somebody. And that's whenever that started. And that was in the mid 16 to late 1600s. And he was also a black slave owner himself. And so he got to keep the rest of his slaves too after that. It's amazing that black people may not know that fact. So capturing and selling their own for beads and was the enabler. And then you have that fact there, and it just makes you wonder why they have this attitude at all. I'm surprised that we kind of left them here on North American continent at all. And then now when you look back at it, it almost thinks that we should have picked our own cotton and should have never let the Jewish people do what they did. It wasn't our idea in the first place. And I believe they figured out somewhere around 1.5% to 2% of white people were slave owners. And if you'll look into it, a lot of those Caucasian slave owners were Jewish. Yeah. There's more people enslaved right now by blacks, other blacks, enslaved blacks in Africa right now than there ever was in North America at any one time. That's a fact. Let's continue. But we don't mind you spending your money that you earn on things and products and commodities we make. We're not going to keep that from you. I don't know why you think that we are. Although there is this whole black only thing goes on. If we ever made a white only thing, you'd lose your mind. Let's continue.
What does colonization mean to you?
Colonization. Boy, they're getting all baited and running through these questions, aren't they? Colonization to me means whenever the white people started expanding out after being able to really get to be a good maritime nation and finding new places and new worlds. Whenever they did, quite often they ran into primitives, which they probably could have just killed off and things. But at one time that turned into a slave trade that was started by the Islamic people 900 years or about 750 years before Portuguese and Spaniards got a hold of it. And then later than that, the Jews got in on it and started their Jewish slave trade, first to South America for a while, and then started bringing some to North America. And then when South America failed, they all came to North America. What does colonization mean? It means bringing modern society to primitive worlds, and then later spending over 250 years trying to domesticate them, and still in that area failing quite badly unless they're in a city that's been domesticated. And still in those cities like in South Africa now and things, it's really the entire problem is these people tearing up their entire ability to even fund themselves or keep themselves sustained. America spends billions of dollars a year just on trying to keep Africa alive, and that money didn't come from black people.
You do know crack and cocaine are both drugs, right?
Crack and cocaine are both drugs. Yeah, and cocaine's like a real harsh form. Crack's a real harsh form of regular cocaine and stuff. Like you have to make it like super powered so you can get real high off of it at once. And also its effect over time and also in mass amounts is very different. Very, very different. But what's the next question?
Can you find out why Bill Clinton thinks one should carry a harsher sentence than the other?
Oh, I think I just answered that. That's like it's not quite the same, but that's the difference between like a joint or pot and like heroin or something, because crack is such a refined form of it and it hits you so hard and you do it. I mean, you saw what happened to Whitney Houston and all these people, and if you'll YouTube videos for crackheads, you'll see these people that are perking around in parking lots and mumbling and hopping around like frogs and sitting there staring at walls and bumping into them, almost having convulsions and things. And it's not what normally happens to you during cocaine, you know, and you kind of act differently entirely, and it's not even worth talking about the same effect that comes off of that. But let's continue.
Now this one is for Flint. When are you going to arrest Governor Snyder? So when we talk about slavery, why are you uncomfortable? It's part of American history.
When y'all are talking about slavery, y'all are the ones that are uncomfortable talking about recently being primitive slaves that had to be domesticated and then taught and brought up. If anybody starts bringing that up, you lose your minds. And what makes us uncomfortable about it is the fact that we know that you're probably about to lose your mind and think, no, we was smarts. And it's like, no, man, you weren't. You're starting to get there now, but clearly the person that has that attitude talking at you ain't there yet, and the bread ain't done. Why are we uncomfortable? Why are you so uncomfortable? You don't like your own past. Next thing you know, you're going to tell me you're an Egyptian, you're a Hebrew, you're a Moor. You're a bunch of totally non-related people, genetically or culturally, to West Africans. That's who you are and where you come from. Do a DNA test. Nobody showed up yet to be any of the people that they thought that they were. What makes us uncomfortable? You get all angry, mad, manky about the thing and start getting just loud and always want to intimidate people and crap and pull off primitive crap. And it makes us feel like, man, are we going to have to like kill this guy? Fight for our life just because this dude freaks out over the fact of truth? What's going to happen? Why do we have to deal with this? What did people do a couple hundred years ago whenever they set them free that makes them just a few generations later act like this? And what laws are in place to make sure somebody doesn't do this? Because this is worse racism than they used to face after it. An odd thing is it's black people being racist. They should be the least racist people after what's happened to them.
Why do you want to adopt the fun part of black culture, but not the true lifestyle of black Americans?
Oh, that's another one of those stupid baited questions there. Well, the fun part. Look, we like music, we like sports and entertainment. We're happy for America whenever a black man runs and wins the gold, and when Tiger Woods wins things. We don't have a problem with it at all. You have a problem with it when it's not. We don't want to embrace the lifestyle of black Americans. They turn everything into a ghetto, ruin everything. They don't seem to have any integrity. They don't have any culture except for the fact that they just sit around and yakety mouth and talk crap about each other. They don't even like each other. They kill more people in America since 1975 than all the wars that we've been in combined since 1975. So it's nothing that you could even possibly say that they have any unity whatsoever. And in Africa's never had any unity whatsoever. But why do we not want to adopt the lifestyle? No, we don't want to adopt that lifestyle. Y'all are trying to mimic a lot of our lifestyles, but we don't want to adopt that lifestyle. Definitely not. I think it's the example of what not to do.
I gotta know, why do you wear shorts in the wintertime?
Why do we wear shorts in the wintertime? Oh, yeah, I guess that is weird for black people. So we're more cold adapted. We're able to go from the North Pole to living on the equator like they're white people living in Egypt 24/7 to this day, and all around the Mediterranean, North Africa, that have been there since primordial times. And also we can live all the way up to the Arctic range and Nordic people and Icelands and all those guys. And you check those Iceland people out there out in the snow with their shirt off and stuff, hacking wood and everything. And a lot of us still here in America look at that and they're like, what the hell? Now, he's gotten used to it. He can get used to it. Black people can't. They can't. They have a smaller range that they can get into. They suffer from heat stroke a lot faster and things. They really came from more of a moisture jungle climate that's not supposed to get that hot, but be somewhat sweltering. And so it really taxes on them in a large amount of way. And their skin is more absorbent of the sunlight, which it heats their body up a little bit faster than it does other people's, and that helps to add to the problem a little bit. Why do we wear shorts in the winter? Um, because we can. I think that just about does it. Yep. Peace.